Hey everyone, hope you're having a good day. My name's Andy. My channel's Finding Value. Today we're going to do our daily technical analysis updated commodities, work our way through the dollar, yields, precious metals, and commodities ETFs that I follow. I'll interject my financial opinions as we go. And if you need help with anything, check out finding-value.com, where I dive deeper into these topics and subjects. This weekend, Saturday, 7 a.m., is our next question and answer session. And that's when I'm going to dive deeper into the real estate market cycle, and kind of how commodities work in that cycle. So let's dive in here. Let's take a look and see what's going on in the markets here. Today we've got a stronger dollar. It looks like those yields firmed up today. I was expecting or looking for a potential move lower, but you can see we've got a move higher today. So up about 0.3%. We still have a lot of support underneath us. All of this stuff here. Lots of support, horizontal and trend line support. And we were moving on up today. We can see that the 2-year yield also moving on up. There we are, but we have not broken through that resistance. Rising wedge is what I'll call it, that we've broken down. So are we going to break back into the pattern above us, or are we going to roll over? And that's only time will tell what we're going to do here. So looking at the 10-year yield, also up a little bit, but still looks weak for me for a potential rollover still. And then the 30-year, it was slightly lower, and we're right on support of this trend line here. So it's a big deal because if yields go up and the yield curve stays inverted, it could slow down gold and its movement higher. We have seen days where yields go up and gold goes up with it, and that relationship is most likely breaking apart. But at the moment, gold's a little bit weaker and yields are up today. TYX TNX ratio, it is inverting further, which means that we've got the 10-year yield going up greater than the 30-year yield, and we are staying inverted. So that is a continuation over. And when we see yields generally going up like this, that's generally when gold does very well. So we're still inverted and inverted further today. We've got bond prices on the 20-year basically going sideways. But we do have a bullish engulfing setup. So are we going to move higher with yields higher with bond prices, lower with yields? I still think that is the play, and it's still intact at this current moment until we see other ones. The 2-year, 10-year, further inversion. So the shorter end of the curve was up almost a percent. It was 0.91%, and the 10-year was up 0.27%. So we did see the yield curve invert today, the 2 and 10s. And that generally is not good for precious metals. It's generally a headwind. So that's what we've got here, and it looks like it wants to go higher. Gold down about $44 an ounce. Some strong selling pressure. We're up against basically all-time highs here. We'll see if we get a further pullback. The momentum is quite strong today with the selling pressure. We can look at the short term here. You can see this big selling pressure move here, a couple of them in a row. Getting a little bit of a pullback with gold in the short term. We also are seeing silver pull back about 3% today. Could we see a further pullback here? And it does look likely that a further pullback could occur. We could even come all the way back down to the $29-ish area. And there's the selling pressure out of this pattern that was created. And we've broken to the downside. So we could still see some selling pressure in the short term for a little bit, maybe a consolidation. Platinum also seeing some selling pressure right on support. There we are trying to break out, and we're right at that resistance support level, right where we're standing or sitting. And then palladium also selling off today, about $29 an ounce, and we are still bouncing back and forth. We got XAU to gold ratio. It did underperform, which means that XAU sold off harder than gold did today. So we're down a little bit, but in my opinion, everything still looks pretty good, and we have still broken out. So I think everything's still intact. We just had a big down day today. Kind of a nasty one, I'll say that. CRB index slightly lower. We do have a lot of selling pressure here, and we'll see if this gap gets closed as well. Longer, bigger picture view, everything still looks pretty good. Coming on up, we've broken through here, and that's generally, a breakout retest. And if we can get our butt moving higher, that's generally a new uptrend because we have a higher high and we have a higher low here. So that would be a brand new uptrend. CRB index versus the S&P 500 were basically flat today, just moving sideways. Not much to report on the short term there. And there we are still in this downward, slightly downward channel that we've got going on. GDX down 4%, but we're still above all of these support levels. So kind of a nasty sell-off today, and it obviously didn't feel good in the portfolio. But we do have support underneath us for GDX. GDXJ is up against that horizontal resistance line that we were talking about yesterday, and that we could loop around and get some selling pressure here, which is exactly what we are feeling, that kick to the nuts that we felt today. And we might loop back around or consolidate underneath for a little bit before breaking above that. SILJ also getting kicked in the nuts here, 4.25% down. And we back out, and that's kind of in the middle of nowhere. You can look left and look for some resistance this way, which we've got, we have some. But it's just kind of a down day. It's not a reversal candlestick. Although it does generate some momentum to the downside. And we'll see if we get any follow through next trading session. Crude oil down 1.65%. This does look like we could go lower here in the short term. And I said that is a possibility with all this selling pressure. It's a flag pattern, selling pressure, and we didn't really move on up too hot here. So we are breaking down. That does look like we could continue lower in the short term here. And some momentum's being generated today to the downside. I did put a fractal overlay on this. This was the last bull market fractal. Here, I'll back out just to show you. It's this fractal here. It's that one. Now, if we were to run exactly the same as that fractal here, and I'm not saying it is exactly the same, but we could get a washout sell, kind of a washout sale here. Maybe it's these two humps there that we go. Maybe we get a washout sale down to, and again, if depending on where you put this, probably back to support, and it could be like $60. That is still in the realm of possibility if we see something like that. Not stating that that's 100% in the bag, but it could be if selling does intensify here. TTF gas doesn't really care what oil's doing, up 5%. Big move today, and it actually looks pretty good. We've had kind of the big downtrend, worked off the momentum, and now we're starting our way on up. So it looks really good for TTF nat gas. America natural gas, Henry Hub, also looking pretty good, up 4.5%. And working its way on up. So that looks pretty strong as well. We've got our boy XOP. Yeah, you know me. This is the S&P oil and gas exploration production. It was down 1.5%, but it doesn't look that bad in terms of charting because we basically came up against this resistance. We kind of broke out, and we're doing kind of a retest move here. It doesn't look that bad, even though crude oil is looking pretty nasty. We have the inverted shoulder, head, shoulder. We're up against that neckline. We pulled back with some light selling pressure in comparison to the move higher. This still screams, at least on a monthly candlestick basis, that we could go higher. But that does contradict what crude oil looks like, as we just got some selling pressure that broke out underneath support here. So the positioning in XOP does not match crude oil, and sometimes when you get conflicting data, things can be a little more difficult to come up with a clear answer here. You can also see that we've broken through that support trend line there. So we could see further downside in crude oil, and although XOP doesn't look too bad and might hold on at support, we'll have to see and monitor it. OIH down 3.5%. Big selling pressure move. I generally don't like seeing big selling pressure moves and then small candlesticks like this. It's almost like we still have some sort of selling pressure left to get it out of our system. I like seeing the big green candlesticks, the small red candlesticks. We don't have that configuration yet. So we could still see some further downside here. Sprout Physical Uranium Trust, a little bit more selling pressure here today. We'll see if there's any follow through over the next few trading sessions. And you could kind of see that there could be a support level here that we could potentially break, or we could break to the upside. So we don't know yet. It's still kind of squeezing up there. URA also getting some selling pressure, but we're above support, and it still looks good. Still looks good, even though we had a big selling pressure day. It's still holding on. Uranium also holding on above the trend line and support, so it still looks okay, in my opinion. And URNJ, yeah, it's 4.4% down day, but it's still holding on. We're above trend line, we're above support. Everything kind of looks all right. So we'll have to see if there's any follow through tomorrow. And URNJ versus URNM, still just grinding sideways. There's no breakout yet of this ratio. TAN ripping higher, up 9%, looking like a breakout going on here for TAN. So that actually looks pretty good compared to everything else. One of the very few sectors that were up today. Looking at copper definitely selling off, putting an exclamation point. Big selling pressure day today. There could be some further selling pressure lower. The wicks at the top kind of suggested that we were running into some selling pressure up here. And now the sellers really came out and hammered it. So look for a consolidation sideways or slightly lower in the short term. COPX also getting hit, down 6.65%. And pretty rough candlestick. It finished pretty strong to the downside, but we do have some support coming up in the short term here. That's underneath us, a couple dollars below it. Bigger picture view, you can see that wick that's being generated on the monthly candlestick, which means we could get a little bit of a pullback. And the weekly, if it closes the week strong low, we'll see if we get follow through here. Lithium down 0.7, still below the trend line, looking for a potential break higher. It's not there yet. REMX down a little bit, looking to do a retest of this guy, potentially. Looking at S&P 500, we are slightly lower, but that doesn't look that bad compared to everything else. It's still hanging in there with just a small down candlestick today, and the NASDAQ has the same thing. Still above support, still kind of holding on in terms of all of those metrics and resistance support levels. Russell 2000 down 0.8%. Is this going to roll over? We do have resistance above us, and maybe we roll back to that lower level down there in the short term. We also have a rising wedge that we've broken to the downside and are potentially putting in a reversal candlestick today, and we'll see if this rolls over. Sorry, it's not a reversal candlestick today, but we'll see if it rolls over. KRE down a little bit, down back into support level. Emerging markets barely lower. Some people would say, yeah, this is a bearish engulfing, kind of, but still looks good on the longer term. So holding the bullish mindset. XHB down 2.2%. Looks pretty bearish on the weekly candlesticks, like we want to go lower. That's that big selling pressure move, the weaker bounce, and then the selling pressure. So I do think we could get a pullback here in the home builders. And there's all those big selling pressure candlesticks that we are seeing here. And this one I doubt will be supported by anyone, because I don't think they care about the home builders all that much. It's not like the NASDAQ or something like that. So this does look like we could get a further pullback here. Some momentum's getting generated. MOO hanging in there, down 0.3%. Still looks good for accumulation in this general area right above support. We've got iron ore working its way on up 0.25%, and I still think this looks good to work its way on higher. We've got nickel also up 2%, defying. Look at that big move there. There we go. Starting to move on higher. That looks really good. Aluminum getting kind of slammed today, down 2.75%. I have a feeling that they kind of want to slow this move down. They don't want commodities to be a runaway freight train. So I think they are getting slowed down to some degree, but they still look bullish. Aluminum does. And even gold and silver. Yeah, we had a big down day today, but they still look okay. The momentum still to the upside is what I should say. Baltic Dry Index down back to support. I still am favoring this for a move higher because we've got strong iron ore prices and Newcastle coal futures have broken to the upside of their downtrend. Speaking of Newcastle coal, there it is. And I still have a view that this is going to work its way on up. Bitcoin moving sideways. It still looks bullish, broken out of its flag pattern to the upside. And Ethereum, yeah, we're down a little bit, but still looks bullish. And this monster candlestick there, wow. That's the big breakout of this pattern here. SMCI, we're down a little bit today. We do have a bearish engulfing, but the setup still looks bullish to me because we've got this breakout, bullish engulfing, breakout, and a flag pattern that's still intact. Still looks like a bullish formation, so to speak. And then Nvidia right up against resistance, trying to break to the upside. We'll see if we can break to the upside here over the next few trading sessions. But that's what I've got for today, guys. Give me a thumb up for the content. Subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to the website. We do have that coupon code Mayday still going on. M-A-Y-D-A-Y, one word. And we've got a 7 a.m. question and answer session coming up this weekend. I will do a little bit of a training session in the beginning of it so you guys can see basically what I see in market conditions. And that is a big determining factor of me holding forward. And we'll go into some of the last bull market, the setups there too, and what they look like in the 70s and the early 2000s and onward. And then we'll look at the situations that we're in today, kind of compare all of that. And I can show you guys all the data and what I've seen and kind of give an explanation of how I rationalize the movements. All right, guys, that's all I've got for today. We'll catch you next time. This is Finding Value.